Hello everyone, welcome to my channel SW Metro official channel. $100 million judgment against not only Kody Brown and his sprawling family but also the Apostolic United Brethren, the polygamist religious group tied deeply to the Browns' identity, finances, and community power structure, in a sweeping RICO conviction that left fans stunned, critics vindicated, and the Browns themselves scrambling as U.S. Marshals seized homes, businesses, bank accounts, land titles, and even television royalties, stripping away decades of carefully constructed wealth and illusion, and exposing a hidden underworld of alleged fraud, racketeering, wire transfers, coercion, and shell company dealings that prosecutors argued had been cloaked in the language of faith, family, and freedom. The saga began years earlier, when whispers about financial irregularities connected to Coyote Pass, the Utah land deals, and unexplained cash movements through AUB-controlled credit unions first surfaced among investigative journalists and ex-members of the church, many of whom claimed that the Browns, under Kody's patriarchal leadership but with Robyn's meticulous record-keeping and Mary's occasional business acumen, were not just reality TV stars but also active participants in a complex web of money laundering that benefited the larger AUB hierarchy, padding the pockets of church elites while leaving ordinary members in poverty. And while fans debated endlessly on social media whether Christine's exit from the marriage and Janelle's bold independence were acts of empowerment or rebellion, behind the scenes federal agents were quietly gathering wiretaps, subpoenaing TLC's financial records, and interviewing accountants who noticed glaring inconsistencies in the Browns' reported incomes compared to their lavish spending on homes in Flagstaff, Las Vegas, and Utah. The eventual indictment, which named not only Kody but also senior AUB figures, accused them of running what was essentially a criminal enterprise disguised as a religious community, funneling TV money, book royalties, and MLM earnings into joint ventures that served as fronts for tax evasion, while exploiting members' labor and loyalty through coercive tithing systems. And when the trial began, courtroom spectators were electrified by the surreal spectacle of Kody Brown, the once charismatic polygamist with flowing golden curls now graying and thinning under stress, sitting at the defense table in a suit 2 sizes too large, Robyn clutching his arm with tear-streaked cheeks, while Mary sat stony-faced in the back row, refusing to make eye contact. Christine appeared via subpoena to give reluctant testimony about years of confusing money practices, and Janelle, always pragmatic, admitted that she often signed documents without asking enough questions, a confession that prosecutors seized upon as proof of willful blindness. Over weeks of testimony, the government painted the Browns as both perpetrators and pawns, arguing that while Kody enjoyed the spotlight, the AUB higher UPS orchestrated elaborate schemes that used families like his to legitimize their financial empire, pointing to documents that showed land parcels shifted between shell LLCs, production bonuses split off book, and even church-owned businesses receiving suspicious wire transfers from international accounts. And though the defense tried to portray Kody as a naive man swept up in forces beyond his control, the jury was unmoved, returning guilty verdicts on multiple RICO counts, which triggered automatic forfeiture proceedings under federal law, leading to the seizure of all known Brown family assets, including the long-disputed Coyote Pass parcels, Mary's bed and breakfast in Utah, Robyn's Flagstaff mansion, Janelle's rental properties, and even Christine's post-divorce home, though Christine herself was spared criminal liability after striking a cooperation deal that allowed her to keep her new life with David Woolley intact. The most staggering blow, however, was financial. The court-ordered restitution of $100 million, to be collected from seized assets, future earnings, and any trust accounts linked to the AUB, effectively bankrupting not just the Browns but also the church's financial arm, leaving ordinary members fearful that their savings and homes might be collateral damage, and sparking a crisis of faith among hundreds who had once believed the church's leaders were guided by divine revelation rather than greed. The fallout was immediate and explosive, with TLC issuing a terse statement announcing the indefinite suspension of sister wives, advertisers pulling out, and paparazzi descending on Flagstaff as moving trucks carted away the Browns' belongings under court order, while on social media fans oscillated between schadenfreude and sorrow, some arguing that the Browns had reaped what they sowed by exploiting both religion and reality TV, others insisting that they were scapegoats for a much larger corrupt system, and still others fixating on the human toll. noting that the children, many now adults with their own families, faced financial ruin and public humiliation despite not being involved in the alleged crimes. Legal analysts compared the case to past RICO convictions of mob bosses and corrupt unions, noting the irony of a polygamist family once framed as quirky reality TV fodder now being lumped in with organized crime figures, while cultural commentators argued that the judgment exposed the dangers of glamorizing alternative lifestyles without examining the power structures and financial dealings behind them. As the Browns tried to pick up the pieces, Robin reportedly begged the court for leniency, claiming that the children should not be punished for the actions of their parents, while Mary, newly vocal, publicly denounced both Cody and Robin for dragging her into financial ruin, declaring on Instagram Live that she was done being silent, and Christine, shielded by her cooperation agreement, became both a pariah and a symbol of survival, with tabloids dubbing her the one who got away. Though critics accused her of betraying her former sister wives to save herself, the broader AUB community, meanwhile, descended into chaos, with leadership disputes erupting, splinter groups forming, and members demanding answers about where their tithes had gone, while federal receivers moved quickly to liquidate assets, auctioning off properties, vehicles, and businesses, and distributing proceeds to victims identified by the court. Yet for all the legal drama, the human story remained the most compelling, as viewers who had once watched Sister Wives for light-hearted family drama now grappled with the image of their beloved characters in orange jumpsuits, their carefully curated social media feeds replaced with mugshots and bankruptcy filings, and the looming question remained whether Cody, facing not only financial ruin but also possible prison time, could hold on to even a shred of the family identity he had so fiercely defended for over a decade, or whether the $100 million judgment marked the definitive end of the Brown family saga, a cautionary tale about greed, faith, and the corrupting influence of fame that would be studied for years as both legal precedent and cultural tragedy, a reminder that beneath the veneers of reality television, the harsh truths of accountability and justice cannot be escaped, even by those who once seemed untouchable under the bright lights of TLC's cameras. A nearly $100 million default judgment that has resulted in the complete seizure of all assets belonging to the family and their umbrella business entity, AUB Holdings, LLC, following a devastating conviction under the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations, RICO, Act. This judgment, far from a simple monetary penalty, represents the total and utter dismantling of the Browns' financial empire, a house of cards meticulously built over decades on a foundation of intricate corporate veils, questionable financial practices, and the charismatic, if dubious, leadership of patriarch Cody Brown, who now stands not as a television personality but as a convicted racketeer. The case, officially known as the United States of America v. AUB Holdings, LLC, et al., peeled back the carefully constructed veneer of the Browns' lifestyle, revealing not a simple pursuit of religious freedom but a complex and sophisticated criminal enterprise designed to systematically defraud local, state, and federal governments out of millions in tax revenue, while simultaneously laundering money through a labyrinth of shell companies and real estate transactions. The prosecution's argument, which the jury unanimously affirmed, was that the entire Brown family structure, Cody, his 4 wives, Mary, Janelle, Christine, and Robin, and their numerous adult children who held titular roles in various family businesses, operated as a single association-in-fact enterprise, the express purpose of which was to conceal true income, avoid tax liabilities, and illegally obtain government benefits for which they were not eligible due to their substantial, albeit hidden, wealth. The pivotal element that elevated this from a case of mere tax fraud to a federal RICO indictment was the demonstration of a pattern of racketeering activity spanning over a decade. Prosecutors meticulously laid out a timeline showing how the family, upon the inception of their television deal and the sudden influx of significant TLC royalties, did not simply fail to file taxes correctly but engaged in a deliberate and coordinated scheme to hide their assets. This involved creating a complex web of LLCs with names deliberately chosen to obscure their connection to the famous family, funneling all income through these entities, and then paying family members through distributions and loans that were never intended to be repaid, thus avoiding payroll taxes. Furthermore, the enterprise engaged in massive bank fraud, securing mortgages for various properties, including their infamous Coyote Pass land in Arizona and the $1 million homes in Flagstaff, by misstating their income and assets on loan applications, while simultaneously having several wives, who claimed to be single heads of household with minimal income, applying for and receiving substantial government assistance, including food stamps, SNAP, and Medicaid. The sheer brazenness of the scheme was its cornerstone. By living their lives publicly on television while hiding their finances in the shadows, they calculated that the spectacle of their relationships would serve as the perfect distraction from their crimes. However, this very publicity became the prosecution's greatest weapon, with episodes of sister wives itself being entered into evidence, showing the family discussing property purchases, business ventures, and their lavish lifestyle, a lifestyle wholly incongruent with the poverty they claimed on government documents. The trial was a media circus, but the legal proceedings were deadly serious. One by one, the Browns' defenses crumbled. Their claim of religious persecution was dismissed early on, with the judge instructing the jury that their chosen lifestyle was not itself on trial, but rather the illegal financial activities conducted under its guise. The attempt to pin the blame on unscrupulous accountants and financial advisors failed when those very advisors, offered immunity, testified to the Browns' explicit instructions to hide money and create complex ownership structures. The most damning moments, however, came from within the family itself. In a stunning turn, one of the adult children, fearful of their own criminal exposure, agreed to cooperate with the government, providing emails, text messages, and internal financial records that laid bare the conspiracy. These communications showed Cody Brown directing his wives on which applications to file, what income to report, and what to conceal, and how to structure their finances to avoid detection. The image of the unified, loving plural family, already fractured on their television show by internal discord, was utterly shattered in the courtroom, replaced by the cold, hard reality of a criminal organization whose members were motivated by greed and self-preservation. The RICO conviction was a foregone conclusion after 6 weeks of testimony. The statute, famously used to prosecute mafia families, allows for the severe punishment of an entire organization. The Browns were not just found guilty of individual acts of fraud, the enterprise itself was convicted. This paved the way for the most devastating consequence, asset forfeiture. The $100 million